Hello and welcome to this video on angles, positions and direction. This is part of the Level 1 and Level 2 Functional Skills Maths course. There are two learning outcomes for this video. The first is to use appropriate positional vocabulary to describe position and direction, including the 8 compass points and including full, half and quarter turns. The second learning outcome is to use angles when describing position and direction and measure angles in degrees. The linked learning for this video relates to what we've already done on angles on shapes. When we did angles on shapes, we talked about acute, obtuse, reflex and right angles, and we also learned how to measure those angles. We shall be using those skills in this lesson. We will also be covering the terminology clockwise, which means going around the clock the same way as the hands do, and anti-clockwise, which is going in the opposite direction. The first thing we're going to look at are our compass points. These are the positions around a compass, and we will start with the cardinal points, in other words, the main points around the compass. There were various ways to remember this at school. The way I remember it was never eat shredded wheat. So N, north, was at the top, east, then south, and then west. So our cardinal points are north, east, south, and west. Then we have what we call the intercardinal points, and these are the points in between the two. So between north and east is the position northeast. Between south and east is southeast. Between north and west is northwest. And between south and west is southwest. And they are the intercardinal points, made up of the 2 points they're trapped between. Here's an example of how you can use the cardinal and intercardinal points to state the direction of something. So here's my dog, Archie, and north is up in this direction above him. If Archie wants to go home, he heads in this direction, which we could say is northeast. If he wants to fetch his ball down in this direction, then we'd say he was heading southeast. And to go and collect his bone, we would say Archie was heading west. Another way to move around the compass or around bearings is using the expression of a turn. Now, a full turn is 360 degrees. And what we can do is we can divide it into 4 parts. We can say a quarter turn, we can say a half turn, or you could say a 3/4 turn. So a quarter turn is 90 degrees. A half turn is 180 degrees. A 3/4 turn is 270 degrees. And a full turn is 360 degrees. So here's a little practice for you using the terminology turn. So if I start with my arrow facing up the page and I do a quarter turn clockwise, then clockwise is in that direction. A quarter of a turn is 90 degrees. So my arrow would face off to the 3 o'clock position. For the next one down, a quarter turn anti-clockwise, so we're going in the opposite direction of a clock, we would end up with an arrow facing in that direction. Now, the starting point doesn't always have to be north. Sometimes you'll have other positions. So for the third one, if my starting point is east and I do a quarter turn anti-clockwise, so anti-clockwise is the opposite direction a clock would go, a quarter turn takes us to this position. The next one, if my starting position is west and I do a quarter turn clockwise, again, I end up facing north. And then finally, if my starting point is the 9 o'clock position, then 3/4 turn anti-clockwise. So anti-clockwise is that way. 3/4 of the way round would also take me to this position. Did you get these correct? And that completes our first learning outcome, to use the appropriate positional vocabulary to describe the position and direction, including the 8 compass points and including full, half and quarter turns.